Time to break down some Florida State football recruiting news.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. You can find us wherever you get your podcast for free and on YouTube. Please make sure you rate and review, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. I truly appreciate it as I grow this podcast. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As the playoffs wind down and sports are slowing down with them just a little bit, this summer, FanDuel is hooking you up with an opportunity with a booster bonus each and every day. That's right. There's something for everyone all summer long at FanDuel.com to get started. Recruiting. This is an unusual precedent here. Some of the kids have pushed their stuff back a little bit further, even than what I'm used to following all the schools that I do. Why, I'm not sure, but some of these kids are making decisions right before their season start or right after. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's NIL. I don't know if they truly are complexed. But Florida State is still in the mix for several kids. And before I go down the list, I'm going to kind of go more or less based on the dates they have. But there's a few other items I want to hit on. Number one, there are players, before I get into this, that Florida State is involved with that are not on the list like public stuff. That is the nature of recruiting. I try to remind people of this once in a while. It's very important. At some point this year, a kid's going to pop up and you think, oh, that's a new name. Is it? Because a lot of these kids have been communicating with Florida State, even if they're committed to another school or whatever. That's just the nature of the beast. Part of recruiting is that side of the business. People don't always want it to be public. They want to keep it private. Remember, somewhere down the line, we're going to hear about some of these kids have been committed for several months, and it's amazing how they're just going to take an official visit to Florida State. Don't be fooled. Number two, before I get into the names, there's still going to be a lot of kids visiting early in the season. Of course, Georgia Tech games in Ireland, but right after, I always mention follow the visits. If you really want to know who has a chance at a kid, follow the visits. That includes seniors and juniors. The recruiting process is sped up a lot. The kids that are juniors that you see come across whatever sites you like to go to follow Florida State and national recruiting, when they visit, it's a good sign. Because not only did they visit your institution, they are bypassing somebody else. With that, here we go with some of the names. Again, this is more or less just down the list from the dates. Nothing special. There's no specific order. And I'm just going to leave it at that. There's one little iffy part with that because a couple of kids, I'm not sure on the dates. They just kind of kicked around ideas. We'll come back to that. But Darian Clardy, the kid out of Escambia High School in Pensacola, it's Emmett Smith's old high school. It's had tons of players over the years. Everything is trending towards Ole Miss, but he just announced, although he was getting ready to announce, that he's backed off his commitment date. I have no idea what that means. I haven't called anybody. I haven't texted anybody. I have no idea. But I know Clardy is a kid that is quite honestly really, really good, and he's a safety. I know that Florida State has a lot of respect in the recruiting world because of how well they've done with DBs lately. I don't know. But I'm guessing Florida State's making a run at him. Again, I have zero intel here. I just saw right before I went to the podcast, like changed what I was going to do. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll kind of lead with that. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Ole Miss needs DBs more than Florida State. It's probably what they were pitching them on, which is true, but they never really, their secondary is not very good very often. So maybe that's why they don't get enough players. The point is still the same. If he goes there, I mean, he's a player. That's a kid that's going to play early there. He may have to battle a little more at Florida State, but this is a good football player. Florida State needs to win the Panhandle. Losing kids to Ole Miss is not good. We'll see if they still keep going after it. Second guy up, just want to mention, as I brought him up over the weekend, I had a nice long conversation with him. Chroma, the running back out of Lee County in Georgia. Can't wait to go see him play this fall, by the way. Already started looking at my list. I'm going to go see him play in October. That football player, I still haven't heard any clarification. I've heard August is a possible commitment date. From talking to him this past weekend, I find that hard to believe unless he just wants to make a decision and keep the rest of it private and kind of go on. Florida State, Auburn, I think is really close, and Georgia is the fly in the ointment. I'm not going to go into depth on him. I've got a podcast from a few days ago. I go in depth there about him, but People want to know, when's he going to announce this is an elite football player? I get it. But I really don't know. Like, I don't care if he told me right now the date. If it was soon, I'd feel a little shaky about it because, again, I had a long conversation with him. If Florida State gets that kid, though, even though I know they're loaded at running back, that's not a newsflash, he's going to play early wherever he goes. This is an NFL player. Chroma catches well. He can run the football between the tackles, he'll make guys miss, and he can beat you to the corner. His ability to catch the football is like a receiver. He can catch over the shoulder well. All down back that plays at 215 and above, kind of like Cam. Ironically, he's one of his best buddies. That's the kind of guy you want in your program. Florida State's going to battle to the end, and they've done a good job with it. Next up, Jared Smith, the defensive lineman out of Alabama. Florida State's not getting that kid. He's going to go to Auburn. I've been told that by I don't even know how many sources. Elite football player as a prospect. He's still a little raw, but 6'6", 235. He's got size 18 shoes. I get why Florida State went out of the way to recruit him. Everybody that I've spoken to literally has said he's going to Auburn. So that one's probably off the board. Khalil Lockett, wide receiver out of Dallas. Big-time player. I've seen him play live. I don't think Florida State's going to get him. They already got 3 guys in the boat at receiver, but there's 2 things to think about here. Number one, Florida State, all 3 of the kids they have committed at receiver. This is bizarre. All 3 of them, at least somebody in the know, if you will, coming down the stretch with those recruitments, including Wiley, who nobody thought Florida State was going to get, pick somebody else. I'm not sure if I've ever seen that in the modern recruiting era, ever. Florida State wide receiver recruiting is bizarre, but in a good way. Maybe they get Lockett, nobody's picking it. Most people think he'll stay in the greater Texas area. They'll go to A&M, Texas, what have you. But I won't touch anything with Florida State wide receiver recruiting based on how they've started this year. And again, if they miss him, they already got 3 really good receivers in the boat. So Florida State's in a pretty good spot. He's committing on the 7th of August. And by the way, Jared Smith is August 3rd. Josh Petty, the offensive lineman, that's been on again, off again. I don't know what to put with that. I thought Florida State had him. He'd made comment like it does matter that my sister is going to go to Florida State. This is a kid from Atlanta, so it's a nice distance, but it's not too far that he can't drive. It's kind of the happy medium. Florida State's always done well in Atlanta. But Georgia Tech has made a good run at him, and he's a really high academic kid. That's a really, really good school. Of course, that's right down the road. He's 30 minutes from his dorm to his mom's house. That's kind of convenient. I get it. So maybe they get him, but that's a pretty big upset. No offense to Georgia Tech. They're not beating schools like Ohio State and Florida State for recruits very often. They're just not. So I'm really curious to see if that ends up being something that comes to fruition. Really good football player. Needs a year to redshirt, get bigger. He's only about 250 or so, but he's got great feet. He has a lot of upside. Petty is going to announce the 12th of August. Now for one that kind of like some of the other kids, typical South Florida deal. I don't know where this kid's going. 17th of August, Bryce Fitzgerald. I actually spoke to somebody about him a couple of days ago. Nobody has a concrete answer. I'm not sure he's made a decision. And I'm not saying I spoke to Bryce, but it would not shock me if he pushed his decision back. All 3 of the Florida schools, Florida State, Miami, are right down the pipe in the mix. I have no idea where he's going. It's pretty rare this late to not know, especially a kid from Columbus High School in Miami. That's a very, very good football program. And Bryce, great kid, but I have no idea at this point. I know Miami at one point was rumored out. That's not true. Like, it's all 3. I wouldn't touch this prediction with a 10-foot pole. Byron Lewis, the running back out of American Heritage in South Florida. He was on Miami's campus again this last weekend. That seems to be kind of a pendulum deal. You know, it's Florida State, it's Miami. I don't know. Wisconsin could still be a factor. You never know with that. I just need him to announce. I would still assume it's one of the 2 schools. I haven't heard from him in a while. 2 in-state schools. Miami's got the last visit, so comes back to it. It doesn't have like a specific date, but assuming he doesn't make a decision before the season starts, again, follow the visits. Is he going to visit? Is he going to come all the way up to Tallahassee? It's a long drive. It's almost better to fly, to be honest, from Fort Lauderdale to Tallahassee. And he wouldn't have much time to come to a game unless it's a night game. So it's going to be much more difficult. He's an hour, maybe, to the University of Miami campus. So that's going to be interesting to see if he takes any unofficial trips to come see the Noles for any of the early season games. Follow the visits. We'll see. And before I go into the next segment, again, there's going to be some twists and turns coming up here in recruiting. That's just the nature of it. I don't think that's too surprising for anybody. And Florida State fans have seen enough of it this year. Again, all three of the receivers that are committed, in a good way, they didn't necessarily lead based on public perception. How true that is, I don't know, because the only thing that matters is what are they committed to? Florida State. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the NCAA. When they talk about recruiting, they're going to add 20 scholarships. That's right, 20 scholarships is coming up starting next year. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? How will teams? I've spoken to a few people, and I'm going to break it down here at Locked On Seminoles. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down and we get fewer opportunities, the sports aren't like they used to be. FanDuel lets me do everything I need to whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up its customers with a booster or bonus each and every day. That's right. There's something for everyone all day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. So how would you personally handle 20 more scholarships? The NCAA is giving college football 20 more. You have 85. But here's the catch. Actually, a couple of catches. What are you going to do with all your walk-ons? Because you've got to do something. You've got to allot something for each player that like practices, etc. They're going to cap it at 105 total, regardless. You've got 105 scholarships. Everybody's got to have something. And I don't know all the clarification, but you want to have your walk-on program to be good. Every school does. Even the private schools try to have a way to have some, because those are the kids that grind for you each and every day, give your team a scout look, etc. And some of them end up being really good too. So how do you do that? Is Florida State, let's just use the Noles as an example, are they going to use like 5 more scholarships a year for traditional recruiting? And then the other 15 split up in some way, shape, or form, which is allowed now to split scholarships for football. Are you going to be allowed to do that? I just have a few thoughts on it. And I've researched it a little bit, but more importantly for me, I spoke to a few people that are in the know more than I am for sure. How would you handle it? Why is this situation coming up? And I'm just going to give the backdrop. I'm passing this along, then I'll give my take at the end. Number one, the NCAA, I know you're shocked by this, is screwed up so many times. They're getting sued and they're getting back pay. There's name, image, and likeness, all kinds of things. They're always in the crosshairs. From what I was told, this is them trying to cover their backside in regards to whether or not they have future problems. They want the payment that's going to be 22% that the House and all that stuff is negotiated with college football programs moving forward starting next year. The 22%, it'll include the walk-ons or those scholarships, however you use them. This is where it gets extremely murky. So I apologize in advance, but it is what it is. I have no idea how the 22%, if it's going to be allocated, if each school gets to do it, because there's state laws, it's going to be very murky, because I'm sure some state's going to challenge what the NCAA wants and what the House, it will be a disaster in some capacity. That's going to happen. That aside, it's still 20 scholarships. That's back to the main question. If you add your druthers, and again, the NCAA might screw this up, would you put 5 guys more on scholarship in addition to the 85? Traditional recruits, a junior college kid, another portal kid, whatever it is. Would you go 7? Or would you just use the scholarships just for the walk-ons? I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it. And the reason I bring up that last point, everybody I've spoken to has agreed with the transfer portal, the way that it is, if you add more scholarships, more than just, a handful, most of those kids are going to transfer. How good are the kids at the back of the list who are on scholarship going to give you a scout look during their first year when they're redshirting? You go that deep, most freshmen aren't going to play. And it's going to be hard to recruit too. So I don't think many schools will go that route. Kids can play immediately after they transfer. That's touchy. So you can look at this a lot of ways. I think somebody, just as an example, like Lane Kiffin, he does about everything out of the box. He's a good play caller. I'll give him that. He might try to just go portal crazy and take 15 kids a year out of the high school ranks. He's already pretty heavy with the portal, but it's hard to win at Ole Miss. So that's a different animal. Florida State, it's way easier to win than it is Ole Miss. That's just reality. There's just way more talent in this state. And quite honestly, you're right on the edge of South Georgia and South Alabama too. So it's about as good from a proxy standpoint as any college football program in the nation. Advantage Noles. I still don't think Norvell will make the mistake of jumping all in. Maybe I'm wrong, but I really don't. Here's why. Let's just be honest. Along with the rest of the staff and all the people in the Florida State athletic department, they're not fools. Who has managed the transfer portal better than Florida State? Give me one. And here's what I mean by managed. Not only bringing in impact players, obviously you got to do that. That's easy. That's the number one goal. But number two, they're getting guys that come in and develop as transfers. Most of those kids are angry about playing time. Let's not kid ourselves. Getting them to go through 1, 2, 3 years, like, let's be honest, nobody really thought at one point Jordan Travis was going to be that good as a quarterback. They developed him. That's one of the greatest development stories I've ever seen. They're offensive linemen. There are guys on the defensive line. They've done a tremendous job. I mean, Verse, nobody knew who he was, even though he was good at the FCS level or whatever it was. But he played at Albany. Florida State made him into an All-American in 1 year. He could have left and been a first-round pick after 1 year. He came back again. That's development. So why should we doubt what he comes up with regardless of the plan? And maybe it's a rolling plan. Depends on who he can get. He'll go to a certain number if he can get elite players, again, JUCO, high school, transfer. After 90, he's probably just going to go walk on, is my guess. But it wouldn't surprise me if he used the first 5 scholarships for some transfers down the road to give himself more depth, more experience. A lot of coaches will at least consider that. And I have no idea what Norvell's plan is, to be clear. But that's one option. The other thing is, it's probably going to depend on which kids turn pro. Florida State's roster has gotten to the point, just like this past year, I think it was 10 guys got drafted, like 13 went to the combine. That's really good. Michigan, I believe, was 1, FSU 2. Georgia was right there, like third or fourth. I mean, it's the traditional suspects in that regard, but Florida State's going to have more and more guys turn pro. So there could be, year to year, Florida State looking at this a little bit differently and saying, you know what? Let's do this smart. Let's make sure that we have guys ready and lined up. It's not that they don't scout ahead for the transfer portal. Everybody does. But they're going to be a little more aggressive, I think, because they're going to lose more juniors moving forward. It's a good thing and a bad thing. If you don't have really good juniors turn pro, you're probably not competing for titles. But it does suck because your roster turns over faster. High risk, high reward. That's what Bowden did, and it obviously worked. They had 14 straight years in the top 5. Okay, it can work that way. If you know how to recruit, you know how to finish the deal, you can make that happen. But at the same time, there's going to be some changes from year to year, especially if they get hit at one spot. Like they lost 2 NFL receivers this year. I'm sure it wasn't a great year for the portal and receivers in the spring, especially, being kind. They did get Benson, but overall, the portal for receiver was way drier than what they would have liked it to be, especially the bigger guys. There just weren't any. If there's a special player out there, they might go over the normal number. It's part of managing your roster. And to be honest, I know everybody's going to have general managers and all that kind of stuff, in addition to athletic directors and director of football operations. There's a million people because it's so complex with now 105 scholarships starting next year. I expect Norvell to be flexible. That's probably the easiest one-line answer I can give you. And I hope that's the case. I really do, because the coaches that just go with a hard line on this will probably fail. He's been very flexible with everything from play calling, recruiting, how he used the portal to date. So I think it's pretty safe that Mike will make a good decision there, but it's something to think about. Next up here on Locked On Seminoles, going to finish up with a few thoughts about the practices between now and the end of fall camp. Remember, first game is the 24th against Georgia Tech over in Ireland. So we're really not that far. We're only about 25 days out. We're going to talk a little bit about why it's important and setting things up, because how they do things now will impact things all the way into the playoff. That's next on Locked On Seminoles. Sandals, sunscreen, snacks for the kids. What do all these things have in common? You're probably buying a ton again this summer, but don't stress about the cost. Use the Ibotta app and get cash back on all your purchases when you stock up on all the summer essentials and all the things you need for back to school too. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn hundreds of items from groceries, beauty supplies, even toys. The average Ibotta user saves $256 a year. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 off for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONCollege when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and start earning cash back. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. That's Ibotta in the Google Play or App Store and use code LOCKEDONCollege. Also, meal factor. This is something that is a little bit different for me. It's something I've actually looked into. They got some pretty cool plans. It's an opportunity for you to get around prepping meals. I'm a single guy. It's not the easiest thing to cook for yourself. Just from that perspective, it matters. But I'm right now trying to cut some weight. This is an opportunity to use some different things to come up with a plan for you. With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to try out. Crush your wellness goals with this opportunity, this dietitian-approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. Make your daily delicious meals from breakfast to dessert. Stay fueled with tasty and easy nutritious options. Head over to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's $20 off your first month if your subscription is still active. So again, head over to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege and use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off and 20% off your next month. All right, to wrap up the show, first off, thank you once again for making this your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate it. Please hit that like button and that notification bell. It is very important. I love doing this, and we're getting ready to go into the best time of the year. Florida State football is right around the corner, y'all. 25 days, give or take, that's pretty close. So let's talk about those days. What does Florida State have to do to not only get themselves best ready for the Georgia Tech Ramblin' Wreck, but prepare for what you're always going to be your objective, to play as many games as possible, go into the playoff, do something. Now, two things. Number one, I've said this a few times now, and you're going to hear me totally change the scenery with this on every show because it's so important. I've heard this from numerous guys. If you truly think you got a playoff run ahead of you, you got to change your entire season plan, because guys can only take so many reps, so many hits, so many opportunities to get in. I mean, it's just the way it is. You must play your younger guys. That also includes practice. This will drive a lot of coaches nuts. And you'll see the teams that fail, especially November, December, and those January games, by how they've, screwed up practicing. Got to cut back. There is no friendly there. That'll drive coaches bananas. Too bad. Do it anyway. If you have tired legs in the playoffs and you play somebody like Michigan, or Ohio State, or Georgia, or Texas, how's that going to go? You think that's going to work out well? The coaches that are smart, especially a school like Florida State that plays in such heat early in the year, really all the way through October, you got to be really careful with practice. That starts right now. They just went into pads. It's a super thin line. You got to hit. There's just no way around it. You got to take the high-end risk in fall camp, because if you don't hit, you're not going to tackle very well, especially against a team like Georgia Tech that has a ton of speed on offense. That's no bueno. But beyond that, you got to rotate guys. Even if they're not doing a great job, you got to get guys in and out. Your depth has to practice live reps, meaningful reps. Do it anyway. I know coaches will hate it. But again, you will see the ones that went too far with their guys that are their first-string guys and even some of their second-string guys by how much they're missing games, missing practice time, and missing tackles in games. They're beat up, etc. at the end of the year because they were stubborn in practice. It's not as bad as it used to be in college football, especially since teams have gone to spreads. Fewer teams hit. It's more about being in the right position, just communicating and stuff. But you still got to get guys to the ground. There's no substitute for tackling. That's the one thing I don't know how they're going to do it. And we could see even worse tackling in college football this year. Hopefully that's not for Florida State. The good news is you got DJ One-Day, who's arguably the best tackler in college football, in the starting lineup at linebacker. And Florida State's defensive staff is very experienced. Same group of guys coming back. You got an elite DB coach, etc. It should be better than most schools, but you just, again, I hope that across the board, not just Florida State, these schools are smart enough to know you got to cut back. If you're going to make a run at it, you got to do that. Second part, with those younger guys, I know especially playing overseas, there's a lot of anxiousness with it. That's really cool, by the way, they get to do that. Playing in Ireland, I'm curious to see if Norvell and his staff allow people, Hakeem will play as a sophomore, but do any of the freshmen really play against Georgia Tech? If they can get some of these guys against, a Power 4 team, quality, meaningful reps. Again, I don't count the last 5 minutes. They're up 17 points in the final 5 minutes. Those are not meaningful reps. First half reps, early third quarter reps, 1st and 10 reps, freshmen and stuff. I know coaches hate playing freshmen as much as they don't want to admit it for recruiting purposes, but most of them want them to know the playbook full on. They're not going to. You still got to play them. Those are a couple of the things that I'm really looking at. How can they get freshmen on the field? Again, it's going to help your depth long term, and they got a great freshman class. Got to find a way to do it. Eat your pride. I know they're not going to know the playbook as well as you like them to. Do it anyway. This is one of my biggest pet peeves about college coaches. I think guys like Cam Davis, you have to find a way to get those guys on the field. Even if it's punt returns, that's another way to do it. There's a million ways to do it. Throw them a screen, something simplistic. Don't make it a read and react play, where the brain causes paralysis by analysis. Keep it simple. They still have more talent than Georgia Tech. And by the way, that's a team that led the ACC in interceptions last year. Going against Florida State secondary, you should be leading by 10 going into the fourth quarter, if not more. Florida State's just better than Georgia Tech. They just are. If you're not playing some of the freshmen early on, that's going to be a little concerning to me for another reason, and that's how much confidence do you have in your team. I know they got a lot of new guys. Got a lot of guys going to the NFL. Got to play some of these freshmen in this first game. With that, I'm going to wrap up. Appreciate you all coming in, checking out Locked On Seminoles again today. So please, once again, hit that like button, hit that notification, rate and review, subscribe, and make sure you share this podcast wherever you can. If you have anything you'd like to hear about or anything you want to comment on, please leave a comment on YouTube. I would love to hear from you. Everybody have a good one.